Hey everybody, this is day 4 of Exotic June, the series in which I get out ideas as fast as possible and upload at least once a day. If you're interested in oddly specific poetry or fully coolly progressive, you can go and check out the previous 2 videos and the one that started it all on the top playlist on my channel. And now let's move on to today's video, which is going to be an episode of a little show I like to call, What is Inside of an Anime Opening? Inside of this episode, we're going to cover Soul Eater's first opening, Resonance. Soul Eater is a mid-2000s fantasy shonen anime that made a big splash when it premiered, but it did fade into the background as its competition, that competition being the Big Three, continued to rise in popularity and take control of the market. Passionate fans of the series would go on to sing its praises for years after its original airing, and because the Western license for the manga is owned by Yen Press, the source material had a hard time getting on and off the shelves, at least in America. But by the time their anthology magazine Yen Plus was cancelled and the Soul Eater repeat show began to air, people started finding their own avenues to read Atsushi Okubo's most well-known irreverent teen action romp. Now, if you approach any Soul Eater fan for a recommendation, they will inevitably tell you to read the manga. The anime's flaws compounded with its sheer amount of episodes makes for a clunky rewatch that's less satisfying than the punchy, highly abstracted artwork of the manga. But that's actually what makes Soul Eater's first opening, Resonance by TM Revolution, work so well for the adaptation. So, if you do not want spoilers, you better go watch the first 30 episodes of Soul Eater, because the first aspect of this breakdown gets to the heart of the entire first 2 arcs. And you can do that by going to kissanime.ru and using the promo codes CATEASILY9 and Couple Yellow Pikachu 7 to get $0.00 off that whopping $0.00 Kiss Anime subscription. And now, without further ado,
let's break it down!
In the very first 6 beats of the song, we are shown our main characters, Maka Albarn and Soul Evans, looking towards the camera and then resonating as though they were going to use Maka's witch hunting attack. And letterboxing their faces are not just colored rectangles, but arrows. Red arrows for Soul, blue arrows for Maka to show their opposite temperaments, and then black arrows to give the letterboxing more cohesion and to also hint at Medusa's vector arrows attack, a symbol that becomes associated with her more and more as the series goes on. The fact that the arrows surround Maka and Soul, though, contextualize their power-up within the struggle against Medusa, and we'll see this become a motif as the opening goes on. We then get a 12-second panning shot from a curved perspective looking up at the laughing moon, which then does a 180-degree turn to put us behind Liz, Patty, and Death the Kid, fly over them to meet with Tsubaki and Blackstar as they land, and then pass by Blair and her little cat coven before following Maka and Soul from behind. The mysterious ways the characters are introduced build hype as the chords of the song match up with each time a character makes eye contact with the viewer. Blackstar even looks both ways to get a better look at us, and both of those head turns match up with the music. As the build-up to the chorus reaches its peak, we're met with the Soul Eater logo delivered to us by Maka and Soul's colored arrows before the scene is filled with white arrows for the transition. The white arrows are used to stay cohesive with the rest of the OP, but distance themselves from Medusa's iconography. That way there's less distinct shapes and symbols to be conscious of while differentiating what sides the characters are on. The warped perspective from the intro carries over to the background of the next shot with the first 2 lines of the song. In a panoramic shot, Maka and Soul Eater reach out to each other to turn Soul into his scythe form and prepare for battle. The wall of the corridor they're in seems to get closer to them and more inconsistently placed in the scene, though. That is until you jam out to it 40 times on repeat and realize that the camera actually pans from a first-person view from Soul's position all the way over to a first-person over-the-shoulder view from Maka's position. So when she raises Soul into the air to strike into the next transition, we've already been in both of their shoes. In this way, they hold equal weight in the shot, but only if you really think about it. And that was a problem with the Soul Eater anime itself. It tried to make sense of everything it had to work with and pack it into a TV anime, but ended up leaving a lot out and making its own original solutions to some of the plot hooks. Getting back to the opening, notice how the letterboxing is already present at the beginning of this shot, but needs to be re-established in the next shot of Death Weapon Meister Academy. This is because Maka and Soul's resonance is not contextualized by the conflict with Medusa at the beginning of the story, but by their combined resolve to eat 99 demonic human souls and 1 witch soul in order to make Soul himself worthy of the title of Death Scythe. We see the first shot of Death City, and then it's re-letterboxed with arrows just like the beginning of the opening, but this time the arrows are black. Not only is this an aesthetically better way of letterboxing a scene, but it shows what Medusa is focused on most at the start of the series. Her plan to infiltrate Death Weapon Meister Academy is hinted at as the shots get deeper and deeper within the city, leading us all the way to Lord Death's inner sanctum. Then, in another arrow-shaped transition, we cut to Medusa herself dancing under the moonlight. This time, the arrows are transparent streaks that eventually make up the entire next frame, and it's to show that this has been Medusa's view this whole time. And it hints that she's a powerful force comparable to Lord Death. However, Notice the lack of arrows anywhere on her design for this entire sequence. This reflects the way Medusa infiltrates Death Weapon Meister Academy by hiding anything that would point to her being a witch. She dances and schemes till night turns to day, and upon this happening she scuttles off into the shadows and out of the frame. This time the transition is just a horizontal frame pull, taking us out of the Medusa context when Excalibur takes center stage. Notice how the camera follows him all the way to the left edge of the frame, all the way back to the right edge, and then ends in the middle. Excalibur uses every frame of screen time he gets to ham it up, and that's just hilarious to me. We cut directly to the main cast's introduction as a friend group and see them acting about as in character as it gets. The perspective around Soul warps as he leans against the wall, but then normalizes as Maka enters the scene. Tsubaki smiles at the viewer but doesn't move much while Black Star makes sure to make his entrance big. His punch follows the camera's pulling out until it phases through Death the Kid and he makes his entrance. He strikes a pose with Liz and Patty and a skull shape forms behind them symmetrically. At once, this establishes him as related to Lord Death in some way, and removes the asymmetrical background that would have been there had the skull not appeared, which makes for a perfect entrance to suit Kid's obsessive personality. In a fast cut, we confirm that they do more than just study together by showing that they've just shared a meal and that Maka's bringing everyone some fruit. And then a naked human form of Blair jumps in from stage left to crash the party, and everyone reacts as they would. This doesn't have much symbolic meaning for the show's plot, but it's an accurate representation of the way fanservice is inserted into the show. Blair's comfort with her own body is used as a setup for a nosebleed punchline quite often, and the girls in the shot all react differently. Maka hates it because of Soul's indecency that eventually has an adverse effect on their soul resonance, and Tsubaki just seems surprised that Blair would be so bold. Liz and Patty, on the other hand, are a bit older and more comfortable with Blair, probably because they're also the subject of fanservice themselves. After that, we're back to Black Arrow letterboxing when we see the current Death Scythe, Maka's dad, with his Meister Lord Death looming in the background. As Death's eye envelops the blue sky behind them, Maka's dad half transforms, ready for battle. If you already know that he looks like a metal cross with no blade in his weapon form sometimes, then it should be clear that he stands before a bunch of bent and damaged ones representing the Death Scythes before him. Within that same Black Arrow letterbox, we get transparent arrows that switch us from Death Scythe to Dr. Stein. As he takes a drag from his skull smoke cigarette, he gets an insane smile on his face. At the same time, Medusa's purple influence overshadows Stein's white patchwork aesthetic in the background. All this hints as to what's to come in later episodes when Medusa uses Stein's weakness to get to the Kishin. This cut is where you might begin to draw a connection between arrows and Medusa, but it'll pay off even more in just a few seconds. New arrows repeatedly trace over the letterboxing to the beat when we see the Kishin's eyes and Krona is introduced, and they're highlighted in white to differentiate them from the darkness of the room they're in. Here, Krona is trapped both in the darkness of the room Medusa keeps them in, as well as Medusa's manipulation of their emotions. Their tormented face unnerves the viewer as no information on Krona is known by this point, and their Screech Beta attack speeds across from right to left, putting our eye right where it needs to be when the opening cuts back to Maka. And this is where the arrow motif really comes to a head, no pun intended. Maka slashes at the swarm of vector arrows being thrust at her, and even during all this, including the magical cobra she fights, Medusa is never actually shown. This is a great microcosm of the dramatic irony surrounding Medusa's plans. All the snake theming doesn't come across as obvious or anything else to the characters because Medusa's name isn't a mythological reference for them. It's merely an aspect of our mythology incorporated into their universe. Black Star then deals a ranged attack to a row of snakes, and Tsubaki stays half transformed as she beheads them one by one. This symbolizes... It don't symbolize shit, it just looks silly. Death the Kid gets an attack animation as well, defending himself within Lord Death's inner sanctum, which you know he's in by those specific clouds. But right after this, it cuts to a red curtain opening and introducing the Black Blood Demon, the source of Soul's inner torment throughout the series, who is then pushed out of the way by Soul. Soul being naked and in a dark blue space signifies his being in his scythe form, and he reaches out to protect Maka's soul that seems in danger. When he pushes the demon out of the way, the curtain does not go back, but the demon's entire frame squishes out of existence. In the series, Soul acts similarly, ignoring his own problems, especially when Maka or the others are in danger. And that danger is quite real as we're shown the bubbling skin of the Kishin's containment bag, looking ready to burst to life at any moment. In a highly cathartic moment, we see Maka and Soul's unclothed arms grasp each other and transition from the soulscape to real life where they're clothed and fully resonant with each other. In one fluid motion, they come together, Soul transforms, and Maka strikes a pose as witch hunting charges up to full power. This is probably the best moment in the opening, as it's the most emotionally resonant with the themes of the show. Success and power comes from teamwork and soul resonance. And just for fun, Maka throws out that witch hunting attack against an abstracted Kishin and almost lip syncs the last line, which refers to getting used to the wound sustained not just by her, but her partner Soul, who she must also adapt to. It's a nice combination of the ideas Soul Eater presents as valuable, showing Maka and Soul empowered by them. By the way, do you want to be empowered by Soul Resonance and ace all your classes at Death Weapon Meister Academy? If so, you should absolutely check out Soul Eater Online. Every character's story is available for you to follow, and it even allows for your OC to get in on the fun. You can even get a head start on your microtransactions with the promo code A Sound Soul Rests Within a Sound Mind and a Sound Body on SoulEaterOnline.com to be brought directly to checkout with an astounding no money off your order. My discount was absolutely not factored in already and marked up because of it. No siree, Bob. In the last few guitar licks, we get close-up shots of all our weapon characters and a wide shot of the Meister characters, looking cool and reinforcing the iconography of the show. And finally, we're presented with the dungeon where the Kishin is being suppressed, its entire body hanging there in a sack of its own sealed flesh. If you notice how it's been used so far, you know there's evil afoot when you see those 3 eyes staring back at you from the sack. But because we just saw all of our characters excited and ready for battle, we know that they'll never kowtow to fear in the face of the Kishin. And that, my friends, is what is inside an anime opening. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more, click subscribe and consider donating to my Patreon. It'll help make this sustainable, and you'll get a special patron role in my Discord server based on your donation tier. If you just want to keep up with what I do, follow me on Twitter at _exoticmaneuver and ring the notification bell on this video. But that's all for today, guys. Come back tomorrow for another video from Exotic June. See you later.